Sorry. So this is the target and that's the strategy and this is your content. That's it. So let's start with the first chapter, vectors. So these are the topics on which we'll focus: unit vectors, parallelogram law, triangle law, resolution of vector, dot product, and cross product. And one last thing, usually our classes are very interactive, but during crash course, we have very limited time. So in a very limited time, we have to cover various topics. So I won't be doing cross questioning, but yes, wherever you have doubts, you can ask. So I won't ask again and again, okay, do you understand? You have any doubts on anything? I expect when you are targeting JEE type exam in 2021 days, then you will ask your doubts on your own. Because if you don't ask doubts, then it won't help so that much. So let's start with the unit vectors. So unit vectors are those vectors which have a unit magnitude and any given direction. Unit magnitude and any given direction. So it have unit magnitude and any direction. The direction is not specified, but magnitude is specified. That's a unit vector. What does unit magnitude means, Krishna?
It has a magnitude of 1.
Magnitude of 1. So we usually represent unit vector in this way. It's a cap. And if you have a vector A, let's say this vector A is 2 Newton due east. Is it a unit vector, Hamza? This vector A of 2 Newton due east?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no, Hamza? This 2 Newton due east, is it a unit vector? No, it's not a unit vector, right? Because for unit vector, magnitude should be 1. So to convert a vector into a unit vector, what we will do, we'll take a vector and we'll divide it by its magnitude. So if you take a vector and you divide that vector by its magnitude, the vector that you get is a unit vector. In unit vector, magnitude is fixed. Like if I give you an example, like I'm saying m cap is a unit vector. Adriel, what is the magnitude of this unit vector?
1.
1. So don't need to specify magnitude. But what about the direction? It can have any direction. So to specify direction, what we do is, this is x-axis, this is y-axis, this is z-axis. We use some universal unit vectors. Means along x-axis, we use a unit vector I cap. Along y-axis, we use a unit vector j cap. Along z-axis, we use a unit vector k cap. So these are unit vectors. Huh? These are unit vectors. So this is unit vector along x-axis. Then we have a unit vector along y-axis also. Then we have a unit vector along z-axis also. That's k cap. So if I give you I cap and someone asks, what is the magnitude of I cap? It's a unit vector. It's I cap. The magnitude will be 1. Now, the type of question that you get from this concept involved Cartesian form. Cartesian form means I represent a vector A in this form. It's A1 I cap plus A2 J cap plus A3 K cap. Priyadarshini and Unib, we have discussed the strategy and everything in the first 10 minutes. I'll repeat those things at the end of the class. So currently we just have started with the first unit, which is vector. So that's Cartesian form, A1 I cap plus A2 J cap plus A3 K cap. Can anyone tell me what will be the magnitude of this thing?
Root A1 square plus A2 square plus A3 square.
Yeah, so that's A1 square plus A2 square plus A3 square. This is the magnitude. Unib, how will you convert? Is it a unit vector? How will you convert this into a unit vector? How will you convert this vector A into a unit vector, Unib?
So
Divide both.
Yeah. So it's vector A divided by its magnitude. So this is the relation from which you can get question. This relation along with the concept of unit vector. Let's do a very, very simple question. Like if I give you a vector A, which is I cap minus J cap minus K cap. And I asked you to calculate the magnitude of this vector. Priyadarshini, what will be the magnitude of this vector?
Root of 1 square plus 2, 1 square plus 1 square plus 1 square. So
Very
root
good.
of
So
3.
that's root 3, 1 square, 1 square, 1 square. So that's root 3. So this is the magnitude. Is it a unit vector? Obviously no. Its magnitude is root 3. For a vector to be a unit vector, the magnitude should be 1. So to convert this into a unit vector, take this vector, divide by its magnitude. So it will be I cap minus j cap minus k cap divided by root 3. So this is the unit vector. So that's the first concept. So you can get question on this first concept. If I go to PYQ, there is one question on this concept. This vector, this question. Okay, first note it down. Take notes very properly. Huh? You will not have any time to study theory after this class. What theory you will learn in this class, and then after the class, we'll apply that theory into numerics. Note it down. If you have doubts, we can discuss. If anyone have doubt, we can discuss while other are taking notes, we can discuss the doubts. So the physics portion that we will cover will carry a weightage of around 60 marks. I believe it's 100 now. Yes, around 60-65 marks weightage will cover at least. And if you can score 45-50 marks from that 60-65 portion, it's more than good. It's quite easy to score 90, 92, 93, 94 percentile in JEE Maths if you follow a proper strategy. You don't do guesswork in your exam, because usually when you do guesswork, it goes into negative. I hope everyone have written up to here. Hamza, Uneeb, Krishna,
Yes,
Adril.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's move on to the first question. Do it. Do this question and write your answer in chat. So it's 1:49. You have 2 minutes for this question. The difference between this NEET paper, AIPMT paper, and JEE is NEET asks question usually on one topic, but when the same questions comes in JEE, it combine 2 or 3 topics. When these type of questions come into JEE, it combine unit vectors and multiplication of vector, either dot product or cross product. Answers? Right from the first class, just make sure you don't make any calculation mistake. Huh? Because one wrong question will cost you 5 marks. Not -1, it will cost you 5 marks if you attempt a wrong question. Is anyone solving this question, or I have to solve it? Okay. I got one answer from Adriel. What about the rest? Hamza, Krishna, Pirojini, Unib? Okay. Okay. So I got answer from Priyadarshini, Krishna, Unib, and Hamza. See, if none of the options are matching, just write none of these. And if you are not able to solve it, just write I'm not able to solve it. At least I will know. Hamza, I'm just waiting for your answer. See, there's nothing wrong in saying that I don't know. Okay, so let's check. Okay, Hamza, let's solve it. Huh? So you have a unit vector. If I say this is a unit vector, then what does this mean? This means the magnitude of this unit vector is 1. How to calculate the magnitude? Magnitude is root over the coefficient of I cap ka square. So that's 0.5 square plus the coefficient of j cap square, 0.8 square, plus c square. The coefficient of k cap is c. And what should be the magnitude? The magnitude should be 1. Why should be 1? Because it's saying it's a unit vector. If it is a unit vector, then magnitude would be 1. Then take square on both the sides. So 0.5 square is 0.25. 0.8 square is 0.64 plus c square is equal to 1. So 0.25 plus 0.64. So this is 0.84, 0.89. So it's 0.89 plus c square is equal to 1. Or you can say that c square is 1 minus 0.89. So what is 1 minus 0.89? That's 0.11. So your c is 0.1. Good. Is it clear, Priyadarshini, Hamza?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just note it down. So you won't get this simple question in your JEE exam. If in JEE someone asks this question, then it will get combined with dot product and cross product. No need to write questions because I'm sharing the books with you. Huh? I'm sharing both the books of NEET PYQ as well as JEE PYQ. Just write the solution. Okay, I'm changing this right now. Okay, after this unit vector, the next is the parallelogram law. So the first topic that you must know is unit vector, then parallelogram. So when we do parallelogram law, we use parallelogram law to add two vectors. And the condition for adding two vectors is the two vectors should be in polar form. If vectors are in Cartesian form, then no need to use parallelogram law. If vectors are in Cartesian form, you can add them up directly. Like if I ask you to add these two vectors, for example, I give you two forces. One force is I cap plus 2j cap plus 3k cap Newton. And I give you another force, F2, which is I cap minus j cap minus k cap. And I ask you to add them up, F1 plus F2. So F1 plus F2 will be I cap plus I cap, that's 2I cap. 2j cap minus j cap, that will be j cap. 3k cap minus k cap, that will be 2k cap. So this is the total force, F1 plus F2. So if vectors are in Cartesian form, then no need to use any law. You don't need parallelogram law. You don't need triangle law. Just add them up directly. But if you have vectors in Cartesian form, in polar form, sorry. Polar form means angle is given. Then you will be using parallelogram. So conditions to use parallelogram law. First condition. It can deal with only two vectors at a time. So using parallelogram law, you can add only two vectors at a time. You can't simultaneously add 3 or 4 vectors using parallelogram law. Two vectors at a time. Second, the vectors should have same starting point. Vectors should have same starting point. Same starting point, we call these type of vectors as co-initial vectors. So these are the two conditions to use parallelogram. So let's start with the calculation. Let's say you have a vector A, you have another vector B. They are inclined at an angle theta. Let's complete the parallelogram. This is, you're supposed to add them up. Vector A plus vector B. You have to add vector A and vector B to get a vector A. This plus sign here is not a normal addition. This is vector addition. Solving this vector addition will involve 3 steps. Step 1, it's geometrical construction. Geometrical construction. So geometrical construction means you will take sides. This is vector A, this is vector B. You will take a side parallel to vector A. Then you will take a side parallel to vector B. This is the complete parallelogram. The diagonal of this parallelogram will represent the resultant vector R. That's the first step. The second step is you have to calculate the magnitude. So for magnitude, we'll simply use this relation that R is root over A square plus B square plus 2AB cos theta. This is how we calculate magnitude in parallelogram. Step 3. Now you need to calculate direction also. Also direction, what we do, see, let's say this is vector R, it's making some angle alpha with the vector A. So if you can calculate this alpha, that means you know the direction of R. To get the direction of R, you need this angle alpha. So to calculate alpha, you can simply use this relation. Tan alpha is B sine theta by A plus B cos theta. While memorizing this formula, always remember that A is the vector with which you have defined this alpha angle. So what is A? A is the vector with respect to which alpha is defined. So defining alpha with respect to vector A. This is how you choose vector A. Let's say I take one force as F1, I take another force as F2. I ask you to complete the parallelogram, then this is the resultant. And then I ask you to calculate this alpha. What is vector A here, Priyadarshini? What is vector A here?
The vector which alpha is defined.
So it's F2 or F1?
Oh, F1.
No, see, this is F1. We're not taking alpha here. We're taking alpha here. Yes, Priyadarshini. So what is FA? F1 or F2?
Oh, here it will be F2.
Yeah, A will be F2. Okay. So this is the basic of parallelogram law. Now, we have some special cases. In those special cases, you can reduce these relations. The special cases are first case. If vectors are parallel, these are special cases. Vectors are parallel. So if you have two vectors which are parallel, parallel means vectors are acting in same directions. So vectors are acting in same direction. That means angle will be 0 degree. In that case, instead of using the entire parallelogram law, you can simply add them up. You can simply write your R as the sum of A plus B. That's it. No need to use the entire parallelogram. Also, no need to use any formula for the direction also. Resultant will act in the direction of the NP only. Second, if vector, for example, like if you have two forces, this is force F1 of 1 Newton. This is force F2 of 2 Newton. And if I ask you to calculate force F will be simply F1 plus F2, 1 plus 2 equal to 3. No need to use parallelogram law here. But if F1 or F2 are inclined at some angle, then yes, you have to use the entire parallelogram. Second case, if vectors are, you can write this in this way also, that R is the magnitude of vector A plus vector B. And this is the magnitude of A plus the magnitude of B. Okay, does anyone of you can tell me the difference between this plus and this plus sign? Open question to all. What's the difference between these two plus signs? Okay, if you don't know the exact answer, make intelligent guesses.
So the first one is magnitude of the sum of the vectors, and the other one is magnitude of addition of the magnitudes, individual magnitudes.
Okay, yes, Krishna is partially right. Anyone else?
So I think the first one is the sum of two vectors and the magnitude of that. Whereas for the second one, it is the magnitude of first vector plus the magnitude of second vector.
Perfect, right? That's the perfect answer. So first one is, see, in the first one, you're adding two vectors. This arrow means vectors. Huh? You are adding two vectors. You add two vectors and you take its magnitude. So this is a proper vector sum. Here, you're not adding two vectors. You're just adding the magnitude of two vectors here. So here, this plus is not a vector sum. It's just a algebraic sum. This is the algebraic sum. So this is the difference between the first positive sign and second positive sign. First positive sign is vector sum. So to solve vector sum, you need all these steps. But the second one is the algebraic sum. Why it is the algebraic sum? Because here you're adding just magnitudes. And here you are adding two vectors and then you are taking its magnitude. So the next is vectors are anti-parallel. Only what does anti-parallel vectors means?
Sir, opposite.
Opposite direction. Vectors are acting in opposite directions. Angle between them is 180. So when you add them up, the resultant will comes out to be A minus B. So you are adding two vectors, but due to this angle of 180 degree, the end result is subtraction of vectors. So if you want, you can write this as in this way also. Vector A, the magnitude of vector A plus vector B is magnitude of A plus, not plus, magnitude of. So Pradarshini, what's the difference between this positive sign and this negative sign?
In the first case, we are taking the vector sum of the resultant, whereas in the second, we are just directly finding individual magnitude and subtracting them.
Yeah. So that's the algebraic subtraction and that's vector addition. The third is if vectors are perpendicular. This is the case that you will be using several times. Are perpendicular. See, this vector is important for your electrostat also. The type of questions that you get in electrostatics will use all these concepts and some portion of laws of motion also. So if vectors are perpendicular, so this is vector A. And keep this thing in mind that JEE never asks questions on a single topic. It always merge topics. And the favorite combination for JEE is electrostat plus vectors, electrostat plus laws of motion. Potential plus conservation of energy, work energy. So you have a vector A and a vector B and they are perpendicular. You want to calculate resultant. So the resultant R here, the magnitude of R will be root over A square plus B square. I'm not deriving these results because the derivation is not required. But if you want, you can derive it. Like it will be a square plus b square plus 2ab cos 90. Cos 90 is 0, so it's just a square plus b square. And then what you can do is this angle is alpha. Then you can just calculate tan alpha, which is b by a. So instead of using the whole thing like b sine theta by a plus b cos theta, you can directly add them up. It's b by a only. And there's one more thing. See, if you get two vectors which are perpendicular, then you can replace your vector algebra to geometry, simple geometry. So look at this figure carefully. I name this as O, I call this as P, I call this as Q. This is a right angle triangle, right? This is one side, this is another side, this another side is equal to B. This is the hypotenuse. I call this as base, I call this as perpendicular, I call this as hypotenuse. So in the right angle triangle, what is hypotenuse? It's root over base square plus perpendicular square. So that's what we are getting here. R is root over a square plus b square. Similarly, we can calculate alpha. Tan alpha is b by a. So tan alpha is b by a, perpendicular by base 1. So when vectors are perpendicular, we will use this thing in numericals of electrostat also, especially in superposition principle of force and electric field. So when you have two vectors which are perpendicular, then you can replace your vector addition, your vector algebra with the geometry thing. So I'm just using right angle triangle, the geometry of right angle triangle. I think. Okay, so that is the theory of parallelogram law. There's one more thing. Using parallelogram law, you can add two vectors. So I'm adding two vector here. Using the same parallelogram law, you can do the subtraction also. So the type of question that you get in entrance exams are usually the mixture of addition and subtraction. So just note it down, then we'll do subtraction. Note it down. If you have any doubt here, just ask me. See, it would be better if you can just switch on your videos. That will improve your concentration span. Just 1 second. Let me just give me 1 second. Let me on the focus mode first. Don't switch on your videos right now. Let me switch on the focus mode. Focus mode is not active. So you'll open your videos from tomorrow onwards, not today. Did you apply for any other exam than JEE? I'm asking from all of you. Adriel, Hamza, Krishna, Pradarshini, Uneeb.
No,
Yes.
sir.
It's okay.
Sir,
So,
CUET.
CUT. So along with JEE, you should apply for some more exams. Like you should apply for CUT. That's a different issue that you don't take admission. So if you get selected in CUT, then you can opt, okay, you don't want to continue with BSc or something. You should apply for Vellore Institute of Technology. That's a good institute. Then you should apply for BITS planning, BITSAT. If anyone of you is from Karnataka, then Karnataka CET. Keep all options open. And if you can score 90 marks in JEE exam, 90 or 100 marks in JEE exam, then you can get admission in almost all colleges, except IIT, and IIT will have many, many options. Plus few colleges have NRI quota also, so that will be also an advantage for most of you. So these discussions were for when you are adding two vectors using parallelogram law. But using the same parallelogram law, you can subtract two vectors also. So if you want to use parallelogram law for the subtraction of vectors, using the same parallelogram. So everyone have written up to here, this perpendicular thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you're subtracting two vectors, like if this is vector A, this is vector B, and this is angle theta. You're supposed to calculate vector R, which is vector A minus vector. So here minus of vector B means you are not subtracting vector of B, but you are adding negative of vector B to A. So if this is vector B, this is this thing here. This is the negative of vector. So just complete the parallelogram. This diagonal here will represent the resultant. This is the resultant. And this resultant is A minus B. So this is A, this is B. Instead of B, you take minus B. Minus B means a vector having direction opposite to that of B. So this is B, you take a vector minus B here. Then you add them up, A and B. So the formula for resultant will be its root over A square plus B square minus of 2AB cos theta. This is it. And if you want to get direction with respect to vector A, then tan alpha would be tan alpha will be its B sine theta by A minus B cos theta. A minus B cos theta. So this is how we calculate tan alpha also. So that is subtraction of vector, and this is addition of vector. So there is only one small difference. Instead of plus 2AB cos theta, you're getting minus 2AB cos theta. Okay, can any one of you tell me at what value of theta addition and subtraction of vectors will give same magnitude? What value of theta addition of the magnitude of addition and the magnitude of subtraction of two vectors will be same?
0 degree.
No, not zero, not zero. See, when they are perpendicular. Yeah, Priyadarshini is right. Perpendicular. When vectors are perpendicular, then the resultant will be root over a square plus b square minus 2ab cos 90 minus 2a cos 90. Cos 90 is 0, so your r is root over a square plus b square. So this is how we calculate resultant if your vectors are perpendicular. So a square plus b square is same as that of addition of two vectors when the vectors were perpendicular. Just note it down. We'll do some questions over it. So if vectors are perpendicular, then the magnitude will be same whether you add them up or subtract. So I can write this in this way. Vector A plus vector B ka magnitude will be equal to vector A minus vector B ka magnitude. And this is true only if vectors are perpendicular. A plus B is equal to A minus B if vectors are perpendicular. Remember, I'm saying vector A plus vector B. I'm not saying A plus B. So it's a parallelogram law. It's a parallelogram. Note it down. I'll do questions. Okay, let's do two quick questions. One from the NEET exam and another from the JEE. So this is from the NEET. If magnitude of sum of two vectors is equal to the magnitude of difference of two vectors, the angle between these vectors is straight from, this is theory-based question. So what will be the angle between the two vectors? Hamza? 90 degree, yeah. Good. Then take a similar question from the JEE exam. This is last year JEE question. No need to write the question. Just read these questions carefully. Note down the giving terms. We'll solve it together, but at least note down the given terms. I'm giving you 1 minute to read this question, to note down the given terms, and at least write the formula that you will use here. We'll solve it together. For solving numerical, the first step is to at least understand the question. First step, note down the given terms. Second, write the formula that we'll use here, and we'll solve it together. Okay, let's do it. So you have two forces, P plus Q and P minus Q, where P and Q are perpendicular. So the angle between P and Q is 90 degree. So you have X, let's call this as X. And what is X? X is vector P plus vector Q. See, these bold terms means vector. So the bold P means vector P, bold Q means vector Q. You won't get arrows in most of the exams. Instead of arrow, they just bold this point. And P minus Q. So your Y is vector P minus vector Q. So can you tell me the magnitude of X? See, P and Q are perpendicular. Adriel, what is the magnitude of X here? Adriel, P and Q are perpendicular. What's the magnitude of X here?
Just add a square plus that.
Yeah, P square plus Q square,
Yes,
right?
plus.
Start thinking fast. It's important for the exam. P minus Q. Unib, what's the magnitude of Y? They are perpendicular. Krishna.
सर
Yes, Unib.
रूट के अंदर होगा p square plus q square.
That's it. The rest is 90° cos 90 will be 0. So you have magnitude of X and Y. Now, so he's considering P pi Q, P plus Q as a vector and P minus Q as a vector. So I call P plus Q as X and P minus Q as Y. When act at an angle θ1 to each other, the magnitude of the resultant is this. So the magnitude of this resultant is the resultant of not P and Q, it's the resultant of X and Y. An angle between them is θ1. Priyadarshini, just add X and Y when the angle between them is θ1. Right? Tell me the formula. Priyadarshini, you have two vectors, one X, another Y. Angle between them is θ1. What will be the formula for magnitude?
It'll be magnitude of x square plus y square plus 2xy cos θ1.
2xy cos θ1. And how much is it? This is root over 3 p square plus q square. Now let's substitute the values. I need more space. I need values. How much is x? See, x is root over p square. So let's take square on both the sides, remove this root. So we have x square. We have y square. We have twice of x, y cos θ1. And we have 3. I'm multiplying with 3 on both the terms. Right? 3p square plus it's 3q square. Next, what you can do is put the value of x here. So how much is x square? X square will be p square plus q square. What is y square? Just p square plus q square. 2xy, 2 root over p square plus q square. How much is y? It's root over p square plus q square. Cos θ1 will be equal to 3p square plus 3q square. Now see, p square plus q square, p square. So this is p square plus p square, 2p square. If I take this 2p square to the right hand side, it's 3p square minus 2p square. And if I multiply it here, this is twice of p square plus q square. Because root and root will be the same thing. Huh? Cos θ1 is equal to. What will be on the right hand side? 3p square, 2p square. What will come on the right hand side?
P square plus Q square.
P square plus q square, right? Because this is 2p square. When we take it to the right hand side, it will get subtracted. 3p square minus 2p square is p square. 3q square minus q square is q square. Then you can write that your cos θ1, it's p square plus q square divided by twice of p square plus q square. Just cancel them out. Huh? So this term and this term will get cancelled out. So cos θ1 is half. Cos θ1 is half. That means θ1 is 60 degrees. Now, if you repeat the same process, you can calculate the value of θ2 also. Because when angle is θ2, this is 2 root over p square plus q square. So repeat the same calculation. So it's again, is asking you to add x and y again. So let's add x and y, x square plus y square plus 2xy cos theta 2. And what is the relation? Relation is root over 2p square plus q square. Okay, now do it. Note this equation, get the value of theta 2. I need theta 2 now. Do it fast. No need to write the entire solution right now. Just you have x and y. Just substitute x and y here and tell me how much is theta 2. Don't compromise your accuracy for speed. Huh? NEET is a game of speed and JEE is for accuracy. You have plenty of time. Just have to do 75 questions in 3 hours. I'm not even targeting 75 questions. I'm targeting something like 60, 55, 50 questions you have to solve. I need theta 2. Very good, Hamza. No. Yes, good, Krishna. Hamza, do these calculations, the easy calculation. Good, Adriel. Puneet, Priyadarshini, Hamza. Good, Priyadarshini. Uneeb and Hamza. See, just substitute the values here. Huh? X is root over p square. Just take square on both the sides, so the roots will not be there. Instead of x square, you can write p square plus q square. Instead of y square, it's p square plus q square. 2xy twice of p square plus q square. Cos theta 2 is equal to twice of p square plus twice of q square. So this p square plus p square and this 2p square gets cancelled out. Huh? So this p square plus p square and 2p square gets cancelled out. Similarly, this 2q square, yeah, this thing and this thing will cancel this thing. So you'll be left with twice of p square plus q square into cos theta 2 will be equal to 0. So you can write that cos theta 2 is 0. You can write that your theta 2 is the 90. Hamza, Uneeb, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The next task is now just check which one is correct. Theta 1 is less than theta 2. Yes, the statement 1 says theta 1 is less than theta 2. Theta 1 is 60, theta 2 is 90. It's correct. Theta 1 is 60 and theta 2 is 90. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. So the correct options. So now note it down if you want. So that's the difference between NEET question and JEE question. That's why in physics you have 45 questions in NEET, but just 25 questions in JEE. Out of 25 questions, you will get some questions which are not very lengthy, but they are just 2, 3, 4 questions in the whole paper. Otherwise, the questions have lengthy calculations. But if you know your NCRT, you know your previous year's questions, then you won't have many surprises in JEE exam. Okay, so let's move on. So parallelogram law is over. After parallelogram law, you have the third topic, triangle law and polygon law. See, we will do triangle law and polygon law, but at the end of the class, you won't get many questions of triangle law and polygon law. And also the questions of triangle law and polygon law can also be solved using parallelogram. So when you're solving numericals, you don't even care about triangle law and polygon law. There are one type of question for which you need to know the triangle law that we'll discuss at the end of the class. The next important thing is resolution of vector. You get many questions on resolution of vectors. So next is resolution. See, resolution is a very easy thing. Resolution means splitting up a vector. Resolution means splitting up of vectors in two or more directions. So ideally, using this thing, resolution of vector, you can split a given vectors into two or more vectors. Does not matter the number of vectors. You can split a vector into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, any number of vectors. But practically, when we use this resolution of vector, we split it into two directions. We split it either along x-axis or along y-axis. So if you have a vector A, you resolve this vector A into two parts. One is A1, another is A2. We call this A1 and A2, this A1 and A2, as the components of vector A. This A1 and A2 are the components of vector A. In general, these two components can be inclined at any angle. This theta could be any angle. But practically, whenever we use component, we use rectangular components. We use the term rectangular components. Rectangular components. So when we say rectangular components, we say components which are perpendicular to each other. Rectangular component means components perpendicular to each other. So the components which are perpendicular to each other are known as rectangular components. So how to calculate rectangular components? Let's say you have a vector A. I am asking you to resolve this vector A into two directions. So simply when I say resolve vector A into two directions, that means I'm saying break vector A into two vectors. One should act along x-axis, another should act along y-axis. That's the simple meaning of resolution, breaking up of two vectors. When I say resolve A, I'm asking you to break A into two directions. Let's say this angle is theta. So when you break this A into two directions along x-axis, the part of vector A along x-axis is AX. The part of vector A along y-axis is AY. We call it as component. So the component of A along x-axis is AX. Component of A along y-axis is AY. We call AX as A cos theta. We call AY as A sin theta. This is what we call rectangular components. Now, how we decide cos theta and sin theta? The direction with respect to which theta is given will have A cos theta, and the perpendicular direction you will have A sin theta. Similarly, if I call this is x-axis, this is y-axis, this is vector A. If I take theta with the y-axis, then the y component will be A cos theta. and this x component will be a sine theta. So that's a cos theta, a sine theta. Just note it down, then we'll use this thing in numericals. You'll directly solve one question from JEE exam, which use this logic. So in resolution, just have to remember the direction with which theta is given will have cos theta component, perpendicular direction will have sine theta component. That's it. And there's one more thing. See, when we say x and y, that doesn't mean these two simple axes. I can rotate my coordinate frame, like I can take this as x and I call this as y. The thing will not change until they are perpendicular. So you can rotate your xy coordinate system as you want. So sometimes in questions of inclined plane, we'll use this thing. We'll change our x and y coordinates. I hope everyone have written up to here, no? Okay, now let's solve this question. At least draw this question on your notebook. I'm giving you 1 minute to read this question, 1 minute to decide what formula you'll be using here. Okay, so can anyone tell me how to proceed in this question? You will get these type of questions in Coulomb's law also. Okay. So in this question, you have total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vectors to add. So if you want to add 2 vectors, what method you will use? An open question to all. For 2 vectors, we use parallelogram law. But what if you have more than 2 vectors? If you have more than 2 vectors, then which law you will use? Okay. So see, if you have 2 vectors, then we use parallelogram law. But whenever you have more than 2 vectors, then use resolution of vector. So what we will do, we will resolve each of the individual vector along x-axis and along y-axis, and then we will add them up. So if you have more than 2 vectors, for more than 2 vectors. So if you have more than 2 vectors, use resolution. So in resolution, the first step is resolve all vectors along x and y axis. Resolve all along x and y axis. So Hamza, what will be the component of vector q along x axis? this 10 Newton vector along x-axis? Uneeb? Component of 10 Newton along x-axis, I'm asking.
Sir, AX is equals to A cos theta.
Yeah, so that's 10 Newton. This angle is 30 degrees. So that will be 10 cos 30. Yeah? We take a component here. Similarly, we can take the component of 10 Newton along y-axis. So what will be the component along y-axis? It will be 10 sine 30. So this is done. Just like this Q, we have to resolve each of the individual vector. Priyadarshini, what will be the component of this 20 Newton along x-axis?
20 sine 30.
Very good. 20 sine 30, yeah, because angle 30 degrees with y-axis. And along y-axis, this will be 20 cos 30. Similarly, we can take component of this 15 Newton also. So along y-axis, this is 15 cos 60. Along x-axis, this will be 15 sine 60. So this is done, 20 is done, 15 is done, then this 15 is left. Huh? The component of this 15 Newton here is 15 cos 45. And downwards, it will be 15 sine 45. Next, we can take component of this 20 Newton also. So along x-axis, it will have 20 cos 45. And along y-axis, it will be 20 sine 45. So that was the first step. You have to resolve all vectors along x and y-axis. In the next step, calculate net force along x-axis. Now let's count the total number of vectors along x-axis. So this is x-axis, this is along x-axis, this is along x-axis, this is along x-axis, this is along x-axis. So we have 5 vectors in total. We had 5 now. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 vectors along x-axis. To add them up, what we can do, so vectors which are acting in same direction, add them up directly. Vectors which are acting in opposite direction, subtract them. Like put positive sign to this one, positive sign to this one, positive sign to this one. These all are acting along positive x-axis. Give them a negative sign and a negative sign. So just add them up directly, right? 10 cos 30 minus 20 sine 30, not minus. It will be minus or plus?
Plus.
Plus. Similarly, this is 2 in, it was 2 or 20, it's 20, no? 20 cos 45 minus 15 sine 60 minus 15 cos 45. Okay, now just tell me the values. How much is cos 30? Cos 30 root 3 by 2. So 10 into root 3 by 2, it will be 5 root 3. I'm writing it directly. Yeah? Sin 30 half, so it will be 10. Cos 45, 1 by root 2, it's 20 by root 2. Sin 60, root 3 by 2, so it's 15 root 3 by 2. Cos 45, 1 by root 2, so 15 by root 2. This is fx. Similarly, you can calculate Fy also. So Fy will be 10 sin 30 plus 10, 20 cos 30, 15 cos 60 minus this term and minus this term. So it will be 10 sin 30 plus 20 cos 30 plus 15 cos 60 minus 20 sin 45 minus 15 sin 45. So I'm not writing the values now. You can calculate. It'll take 5 more minutes. And then you can check which option is matching. Is it clear? The method is clear? Then you can write your final force as Fx plus Fy. Yes, everyone. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So whenever you have more than 2 vectors, just resolve them along x and y axis, get the net force along x axis, get the net force along y axis, and then add that Fx and Fy. So you'll get plenty of questions on this method. Also, you did derivation of that electric field on the equatorial line of dipole. Huh? You use the same rules there. Now. To derive the expression of electric field on the equatorial line, you take electric fields and you resolve them along x and y axis. The same procedure. Instead of two electric fields, in that derivation, you had two electric fields, one from a positive charge, another from the negative charge. But here you have 6 vectors or 5 vectors. Note it down, please. Then we'll see some multiplication of vector also. So can I scroll if you have written? We just have 15, 20 minutes. We have to complete 2 more topics. Yeah, can I scroll if you have noted it down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And see, all these questions are from the recent JEE exam. So this is the standard and this is the type of question that they ask. And people usually say that you must have heard that JEE is now getting NCERT based. So NCERT based means you will get questions on the basis of calculations in NCERT. This particular question is NCERT based. In class 11th, in class 12th, you have several derivations which is using this concept. So they just, instead of 2 vectors, they add 3 more vectors. So this is the NCERT based means. Doesn't mean that they are repeating the numericals of NCERT. They're just adding something into the numericals of NCERT. Okay, the next is multiplication of vectors. Multiplication of vectors with vectors. So when you multiply 2 vectors, then there are 2 cases. On multiplying 2 vector, you can get a scalar. So on multiplying 2 vector, if you are getting a scalar quantity, then we call it as dot product. And if on multiplying 2 vectors, you are getting a vector, then we call it as cross product. Both dot product and cross product you must have used in your class 12th first chapter. In Gauss law, in flux, you use dot product. In torque of electric dipole and uniform electric field, you use cross product. Dot product. So you have 2 vectors. One is vector A, another is vector B. They are inclined at an angle theta. So when you take A dot B, then A dot B is A B cos theta. This is it. The result is a scalar. A is a vector, B is a vector, but result is a scalar quantity. Then we have few properties of dot product that we should know. The first property is if you just change the order, like A dot B, you do A dot B or you do B dot A, the same thing. They are commute, so it's commutative. Dot product is commutative. The second property is if 2 vectors are perpendicular, if A is perpendicular to B, that implies that the dot product of A and B will be 0. So if A and B are perpendicular, that would mean A dot B is 0. Third one. Some examples from physics, like work done is the dot product of force and displacement. Your electric flux phi is the dot product of electric field and area vector. Similarly, the magnetic flux phi is the dot product of magnetic field and area vector. This is electrostat, this is electromagnetic induction. Fourth, if you have parallel vectors, so I'm writing a few examples. I dot j, I is along x-axis, j is along y-axis, so I dot j should be 0. Similarly, j dot k will be 0. Similarly, it's k dot I will be 0. So if you have two unit vectors which are perpendicular, then their dot product would be 0. The next is parallel vectors. So if you have two vectors which are parallel, you have a vector b dot vector b, they are parallel. So this is a b cos 0. This is the maximum value of dot product. Dot product will have a maximum value only if you have two vectors which are parallel. So if I ask you to calculate the dot product of I cap and I cap, see, I cap, both are acting along the same x-axis. Or if I ask you to do j cap dot j cap, or if I ask you to do k cap dot k cap, that comes out to be 1. So you should keep these results in your mind that I dot j, j dot k dot I, they are mutually perpendicular, so their dot product is 0. While I dot I, j dot j, k dot k, they are identical vectors, so their dot product would be 1. After parallel vectors, the next is dot product in Cartesian forms. So if you have vectors in Cartesian form, then let's say you have a vector A, which is A1 I cap plus A2 j cap plus A3 k cap. And you have a vector B, which is B1 I cap plus B2 j cap plus B3 k cap. And if I ask you to calculate A dot B, then the coefficient of I cap is A1, coefficient of I cap is B1, so it's A1, B1. Just multiply the coefficient, nothing else. Similarly, the coefficient of J cap is A2, the coefficient of J cap is B2, so this is A2, B2. Similarly, sorry, that's B2. K cap or K cap, so that will be A3, B3. So this is the dot product in Cartesian form. A1, B1 plus A2, B2 plus A3, B3. You will not have I cap, J cap, and K cap in the final answer, because final answer is not a vector, final answer is a scalar. Then along with this, for numerical, you should remember 3 more relations. First is, if you take a dot product of a vector with itself, then that dot product of a vector with itself is equal to the square of that vector. Seventh thing is, if you have two vectors A and B, and I ask you to calculate angle between them, then you can simply use this relation that cos theta is A dot B by mod of A dot. Sorry, not mod of A dot B. Mod A into mod. We'll use these things in numericals. Third thing, eighth property. So if you have two vectors, one is vector A, another vector is vector B, both are given in Cartesian form. A and B both are given in Cartesian form. And if I ask you to calculate component of A along B, or simply you can write this as projection of A on B, then this is simply A dot B cap. If he asks you to calculate in vector form, then this will be vector A dot B cap multiplied with a B cap. This is it. So that's all about dot product. If you know all these 8 properties, you can handle all numericals of dot product. Just note it down. We'll do some questions on dot product. See, if you have any doubt in the theory, just tell me. I will repeat again. Make this thing very, very clear in your mind. If after this class you start reading some theory, then you won't be able to complete the syllabus on time. After the class, you just have to attempt numericals, nothing else. And whatever doubts you have, you can discuss with in the doubt session. We'll have doubt sessions in the evening around I believe 8 p.m. KSA, 10 p.m. IST. We'll share those details also on the group. Just 21 more days, huh? You can score well in JEE exams. That's settled. See, this is cos 0, huh? Cos 0 is 1, which is AB. So the maximum value of cos theta is 1, which is when theta equal to 0 degrees. So that's why it's max. So everyone have written up to here? Krishna, Priya, Munib,
Yes, sir.
okay. So we'll stop here. Okay, there's one more thing. Like we have already shared the planner with you. If any one of us cannot complete any topic, so that will either will have extra class on the next day. Like since I can't complete cross product today, I was supposed to complete cross product today. So tomorrow we'll have class from instead of 11, we'll have from 10:30 a.m. We have to cover that thing. We can't miss those targets, because if we miss those targets, that's very difficult for you to score well in the exam. We at least have to cover all those topics that we have mentioned in that plan. So there's two things. If we miss anything, we will have an extra class on the next day, or we will record that portion and share that recording. So that the faculties will decide which one is more suitable. If there is any topic which is more theoretical, we can record it and give it to you. That's a different issue. But if there is something which need discussion, then we'll take extra class on the next day, extra hours on the next day. So please keep your whole day free. Don't involve in anything else for the next 21 days. Oh, it's doable. JEE 90 to 95% in 21 days is doable. It's not a very big task. Anyways, I'll stop here. We'll continue this thing in next class. Huh? So you have your chemistry class after 15 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm asking someone from the operations team to share that JEE and NEET PYQ with you. Your homework is you have to solve all questions of vectors from NEET PYQ. Then you have to solve all questions of vectors from the JEE PYQ. And the night we'll have a doubt session. You can discuss your doubts in the night. I'm sharing the timings of the doubt session also. That's your homework. Just solve all PYQs from NEET and JEE. It won't take more than 2 hours or 1.5 hours. Okay, so let's stop here. We'll continue this tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.